first pick.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of On the Clock. A little different voice this time. Jared is currently busy with a webinar, so he's entrusted me to run the show today, which I don't know why he thought that was a good idea, but here we are. I've got Monty with me, and of course, we've got Daron Vaught, the voice of ACC Baseball, etc. podcast, and you also probably know him as the ECU radio broadcaster, if I remember correctly, and amongst other things. Not to mention, he's also given us lottery numbers in the state of North Carolina for the past couple of years. So, Daron, how are you doing today, buddy?
I'm good, Tyler. I just want to say, without Jared here, I believe in you. I believe in you. I don't even think that you really need it. I'm glad to see Monty, but I don't know that you needed to bring him in. I believe in you that much. But it's good to see both of you guys.
Yeah, I'm actually, Daron doesn't realize this, but every interview he does from now on, I have to be on it.
Right, yeah. You're just with me. He's just with me.
I'm part of Daron's entourage now.
Monty's just like the what's the guy's name on the Eagles? Like Big Vic or whatever his name is.
The security guy.
You're just on the guerrilla marketing team for Rintaro.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yep. And that kind of just puts us into what we're going to talk about today. You know, Daron, you've spent months working on this project that's going to be filtered in with D1, talking about Rintaro Sasaki. So kind of just talk to us about the journey. Kind of like tell us what's been going on with that, because you've been excited for months to be doing this, and it looks like we finally got a date for it to go out on the 27th. So,
yeah, episode 1 drops on the D1Baseball podcast feed on Monday, the 27th, as you said. This was something that obviously we who are in it and about it every day, like we understood the significance to whatever degree when Rintaro Sasaki decided that he was going to forego a professional career in Japan and play collegiately in the United States. I don't think that's the case with probably more fans of college baseball than we even would have thought at the time. And again, like, we're in it day in and day out. Like, I saw both of you guys over the summer and the fall, and we would talk about it and geek out on various things. But I wanted to do a couple of things with this. One, get the point across just how important it is, what Rintaro is doing as a Japanese baseball prospect, how important it is for him, how important it is for the influence of Japanese baseball in the United States, which already is at a high water mark, you could say, right? Earlier this week, we had Ichiro Suzuki as the first Japanese-born player inducted into our National Baseball Hall of Fame. Everybody knows Shohei Ohtani. Roki Sasaki has been, right, like over the past few weeks, has there been a more Googled baseball name than Roki Sasaki? Probably not. So the Japanese influence on the game of baseball here in the United States is at an all-time high. This has a chance to ratchet it up to even greater levels. The other thing is there's this sort of perfect synergy with me hosting the ACC Baseball podcast for D1, Stanford in Rintaro's first season of collegiate baseball, entering the ACC. I felt almost a responsibility that we should introduce him to the college baseball world. And it started with the ACC world, right? As I sort of ideated for our show, Gravy and Me. But then it kind of took flight as this thing that, like, okay, we're going to push this on D1 overall, generally speaking, because it's that big of a deal. I mean, some outlets have already named Rintaro Sasaki their National Freshman of the Year in the preseason, which Monty and I talked about the other day. Like, it's just kind of a weird award to give out because he hasn't played a single college game. I mean, it's fair to predict that he's going to be the best of them. That's fine. So I wanted to do those two things. So I pitched this project to the rest of the D1 crew. And remember, I'm kind of the new guy. Last year was my first full season under the D1 umbrella. And I wanted to pitch them on this idea of a narrative podcast. They'd never done it before. We, of course, have the D1 Baseball Podcast Network, which had been bolstered up to include the SEC show and our ACC show over the past couple of years. And that's it. I mean, it is in 6 parts. It is a narrative audio project. There are over a dozen different interview subjects. I don't know the exact number. It's creeping up on 20, but it details this unprecedented path taken by Japan's top baseball prospect, Rintaro Sasaki. So, we get into the decision to do this at all, right? Why not? He was going to be a highly sought after NPB draft pick. Why not do that? Because, Shohei Ohtani did that, and it's led to a very fruitful career, even before his humongous contracts in the United States. I mean, he made a handsome living playing baseball in Japan. Ichiro Suzuki was the same way prior to jumping to the United States. And whoever your favorite Japanese player of all time is, whether it's Hideki Matsui or whoever you want, maybe a more obscure one. Mine's Ichiro, but up there on my list, Tsuyoshi Shinjo is up there. So yeah, like it's a viable way to make a living playing baseball, and you still have the opportunity to jump to MLB. This is certainly different. It is risky in certain ways. We talk about that on the show. And then comes, once you've made the decision to come to the United States and play in college, you got to choose a college. So the recruiting process and how he ended up at Stanford is highlighted as well. Then he got to campus and he was enrolled early, so people got to actually see what it was about. And then the summer ball stint is an episode in and of itself, because that's when everybody got to see what Rintaro could do. So I'm really excited. We're going to slow release it. It's going to be 2 episodes a week, starting on Monday the 27th up until opening day. And again, it just hopefully is going to be a good introduction of Rintaro to the college baseball world.
I fully believe it will be, honestly, because like the way you mentioned it, with it being kind of like this is a landmark thing for college baseball. And I think ultimately going down the road, I think there's already a few players in Japan that have considered just coming straight to the United States for college, to kind of just test the waters and see how it goes. I think Rintaro is going to be an entrepreneur in that front.
Yeah, and to be clear, he's not necessarily the first to do it. There are examples, or there's a specific example that we talk about in episode 1 that's going to come out on Monday. But he's the first of this caliber to do it. And this year also, there is, in recent days, you probably saw the international signing headline, Shotaro Mori signed as a 2-way player, a minor league contract with the Oakland A's. He is in a similar boat as Rintaro. They're the same. Well, they're not the same grad class, because Rintaro graduated a year early to get to Stanford early, but Mori is not going to pursue the NPB as a career. And rather than going pro there, posting, and then going straight over in a horizontal move to MLB, he's going to test out the minor league system, which is also very different for a Japanese prospect, right? I mean, Ichiro never played in the minors. Shohei never played in the minors. Matsui never played in the minors. It's a very different path. So that's going to be an interesting one to follow as sort of parallel to what Rintaro's doing. And if they both work, holy cow. I mean, that opens up a couple of pipelines for Japanese players that previously had not really been available to them. And then there's the nuance of NPBs probably, if those 2 pathways open up, they're probably going to be forced to change their posting rules, because they're going to want to try to keep more of their talent than they lose. So we'll see. But I mean, that in and of itself makes it a big deal. If you're going to force change to some pretty long-standing posting rules in Nippon professional baseball, that's significant. So, right. I mean, this could shake up everything.
And to be clear, the NPB is the world's second best major league, right? Like it's up there with AAA, or I mean, I think it's probably a little bit better than AAA, to be honest, especially based on what we've seen from like the Japanese World Baseball Classic teams. They can compete.
Yeah, and I think the common comparison is people say it's like AAA baseball. I don't know that's fair or even reasonable, but it is, next to Major League Baseball, far and away, it's the second best league. So, you see a lot of guys who are tweeners and maybe at their twilight of their careers in MLB go out that way to experience something different. So certainly maybe that's where the AAA comparison comes in. But Yeah, I mean, it is, and again, the money is there. It's still a good league. So to bypass that in order to chase this dream of Major League Baseball is bucking convention in a pretty big way.
Yeah, I want to say, this is like a weird comparison, maybe, but like Carter Stewart going to Japan after his grievance with the Braves and everything, like we all thought that would be like a pathway that would be ventured, but ultimately that never did. So like, I don't know if that comparison even makes any sense.
I think there's an across sports comparison, though. Do you guys remember Brandon Jennings played high school basketball at Oak Hill Academy?
He went to Europe. Yeah.
So he goes overseas to skirt after the NBA draft rules had been changed. He goes overseas for 1 year so that he can then get drafted rather than having to go to college for, at the time, I think it was you had to stay for 2 years or whatever the rule was. Those rules have changed a ton.
Yeah.
But it's because of decisions like Jennings, and he forced the changes, right? So like when he decided to do that, the NBA was like, okay, well, we kind of have to open it up to more, to become more accessible, right? And now, of course, there's the one and done capability of a college player. So realistically, you can go whenever. And that kind of created it, or at least that aided in the creation of it. I see this in a similar way, so that Japanese prospects, if this is a successful move by Rintaro and to a lesser degree Shotaro Mori, if it's a successful move and it opens up at least one pathway for Japanese prospects, NPB is going to have to make an adjustment and allow their players to either do this more and kind of open it up and give them the freedom to continue doing this. And that might open up a pipeline where American prospects go to Japan, right? Because there are only so many spots in certain places, and you just kind of open the whole thing up. That could be fun. Or NPB as a result makes it more restrictive so that Japanese prospects can't do this. And then in that case, I mean, we might be talking about a not to reuse the term in a different way, but a one and done scenario where it's like, okay, Rintaro did it and he did it so well that nobody else was ever allowed to do it again.
Yeah, that would be pretty crazy. Taking a little bit of a different change here on the Stanford side, how is this going to affect their brand? Because we've seen some of the West Coast teams, like you can see from the media scrums, the Japanese people love their baseball, and they love cheering on their baseball players in the United States. What is this going to do for Stanford's brand as a baseball team, and then by extension, the ACC?
It depends largely on the success of Rintaro and, for lack of a better way to put it, this experiment. But I mean, you don't have to look much farther away than from Stanford. I mean, the changes that, guys, I went to Dodger Stadium in September to see a Dodger game. The changes that they have made there to cater to the Japanese fan base, and I don't mean Japanese American population in SoCal, which there's a large one there, as well as Northern California, near where Stanford is. I'm talking about people making the trip from Japan to come watch Shohei Ohtani and Yoshinobu Yamamoto play baseball in Los Angeles. Every sign there is Japanese as a secondary language on it. Even down to like the vendors on the concourse, there is a heavy Japanese food influence in that stadium. It's awesome. And it's noticeable. It is so noticeable. It's kind of hard to imagine Sunken Diamond doing something similar, but I don't know. Maybe it's possible if this thing works with Rintaro, and he maybe stands to be an exception because he's such a generational talent. You know, Japan's top prospect every cycle is not going to be quite as heralded as he is. But I mean, there's a chance, again, if this works and other prospects from Japan have the opportunity to do this, they're going to look to the one thing that they've seen as a success story in what they're doing, right? And some people will try to break through and do it a different way, similar to what Rintaro is doing, I guess, now. But you're going to have a frame of reference. That frame of reference will be Rintaro going to Stanford. And from Stanford's side, even from like an administrative point, they've done it before. That is hugely beneficial. We saw that, bringing back the Dodgers as an example. It's been reported that, their involvement with Shohei and Yamamoto paid significant dividends when trying to get Roki Sasaki to sign there. Like, that matters, to have the infrastructure that caters to a Japanese player, and Stanford's going to have that post Rintaro. So I think it sets them up to be a pipeline of sorts for Japanese players. And again, the community is comfortable for Japanese players because there's a high Japanese American population in Northern California. For Rintaro specifically, he's so famous. Part of it is when he did his campus visits at Stanford, look, they're good at everything, right? I mean, there are Olympic gold medalists who were such as current students at Stanford. They're just walking around campus like normal people, right? And people treat them like normal people because that's commonplace at Stanford. I think that appealed to the Sasaki family in a way that Rintaro was not going to be bombarded at every turn, in maybe a way that would have happened look, it's been reported that he visited Vanderbilt at an SEC school where sports are king. And, baseball
in particular.
Baseball in particular is a very popular sport there. Like, I don't know what that looks like on campus at Vanderbilt or in just around in and around Nashville. I don't know what that looks like for Rintaro. I can't imagine it's as comfortable as the setting at Stanford and in Northern California in particular. So I think that played a huge part in it. They set up well to have something of a landing place, like we've seen with certain MLB teams, certainly the Dodgers right now, after Ichiro went to the Seattle Mariners when he originally signed in the early 2000s, Kazuhiro Sasaki was their closer short thereafter. It became sort of a soft landing place for Japanese players, and I think Stanford has a chance to be that for Japanese prospects.
I dig it. And also, not to mention, you mentioned like the athletes that have been to Stanford. ACC legend Katie Ledecky, by the way.
Yeah.
Now that's the thing. Tiger Woods, ACC legend now.
Yeah. Keep them coming.
Yeah.
Andrew Luck. I mean,
yes.
Architectural design major.
Yeah. So but like those guys, again, when talking to the people around the program at Stanford, it was made very clear, like, oh no, I used to see Katie Ledecky at the little coffee shop right off campus here. She'd just be sitting there reading a book, and people are walking by her like, she's just another person. So I think that, again, that appealed to Rintaro, his camp, in a way that I don't know that there's another campus in America that can provide that comfort in being famous.
How much did education play a factor? Because Stanford's got a world-class education. That's part of why they don't have a ton of transfer movement, in their program. And given Asian culture as a whole, not just Japanese culture, they take education very seriously. How much of a factor did that end up playing as well?
Yeah, the understanding across Stanford's program is that was a very serious implication for Rintaro. They took it seriously, and it shows in the schools that he visited, right? I mean, the finalists, it came down to Cal Berkeley, Stanford, UCLA, and Vanderbilt. He also visited Duke. So those are all great academic institutions where there are educations that have brands, big brands worldwide. So, of course that mattered. And he enrolled in class early. Rintaro seems to be a guy who just really wants to challenge himself in every facet. Otherwise, I don't know why he's doing this, because it seems insane to move to a country where you don't know the primary language upon your arrival, to give up this short-term success and money and fame in your home country, where, again, like, it's still money, it's still success, it's still fame. It plays the same across the world. Yeah. I promise you. I don't know that from experience, but I'm telling you, like, he could have lived a perfectly good life as a professional baseball player in Japan. And like, his first semester, he enrolled early. He started going to school before he's even, on the baseball team and getting official plate appearances. And one of his first courses was at Stanford, one of the premier universities in the United States. He took like biochemistry in English. Can you guys imagine, like, going to another? I would struggle with biochemistry as it is, and I'm a native English speaker.
Is biochemistry in English? Like, because it seems like a foreign language to me. So he's learning English, but he's learning a third language too in biochemistry, right? Like that actually paints the picture perfectly. So yeah, like he wants to challenge himself, and I think academically that's a big piece of it too, for sure.
God, biochemistry. I don't miss those days at all. I really don't. Not at all. So I guess one more question that I have, kind of like looking at what you expect from Sasaki, and in turn, kind of like a different tangent, that Stanford team, because they returned, Monty was telling me before, like 99% of their innings last year. Experience is king in college baseball now. Kind of looking at that Stanford roster, like, do we look at this team as like they might be back in Omaha again soon?
I think soon is, and again, especially, I'm wrapped up in it because I've been working on this thing about Rintaro, but the hype seems to be real. It remains to be seen if it actually plays out, but and you'll hear when you listen, like, I'm not out on a limb trying to project that. Like, most people who are around him every day and see the kind of player that he is think he's going to make an immediate impact, right? So that aside, they do return a lot of players from last year. Of course, Malcolm Moore has moved on as a first-round pick and their star from a season ago, but it's one of those cases where it's just kind of like, when you're Stanford and guys don't necessarily want to leave because it's Stanford and you're getting a Stanford education and life is good, it kind of pays to be bad, to the point where you got to throw everybody in as a pitcher and get everybody innings, even when, admittedly, Stanford had some guys last year, and I say they admittedly in that they admitted, they had some guys last year that probably had no business getting innings in certainly an ACC competition, but now, because of that experience last year, they are ready and they have used that to improve from one year to the next. So yeah, like, there's going to be a level of comfortability with the entire pitching staff that is rare in college baseball these days. That's a great starting point. Joey Volchko and Matt Scott as linchpins of your staff, a great starting point. In addition to some of the position players they kept hold of, they've got an incoming freshman shortstop, Charlie Bates, who I think is going to have a pretty significant impact on their team. Like, we'll see. Like, I told Monty the other day, I think Louisville has the greatest disparity of any team in the ACC between floor and ceiling. Stanford's in that conversation as well. Like, this is a team that could be really, really good.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Is there, offensively, you mentioned Charlie Bates. Is there anyone besides Charlie Bates and Rintaro who really excites you in Stanford's offensive field? Because we talk all about Stanford's pitching, but they've got some decent bats in their lineup that are not named Charlie Bates or Rintaro Sasaki. Is there any one that you're particularly fond of and think's going to have a big year?
I'm partial to Jimmy Natai, the Australian, on that roster, partially because he's a pretty big voice in this project. So I've gotten to develop a decent rapport with him. So I really hope he has a good season. He and Travis Bazzana have played together since they were kids. And I think that Trav's influence on Jimmy stands to be an opportunity for growth and improvement, right? Like now that Bazana has entered the professional world and he spent the summer doing that, he's in touch with Jimmy and can maybe impart some things on him in his preparations for this Stanford season. But you're right. I mean, there are many players on this team that have encouraging outlooks for the season. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I can relate to that because I obviously, when I interviewed a player from every team, I got Court McDonald for Stanford, and I'm just
another great one.
Pumped for him. His personality is fantastic, and he's had some success in the outfield, and he's poised to have a good year. So yeah, and you really root for some of these guys when after you've built that rapport with them. But yeah, I'm pumped.
I've got a name that I think I really like on that Stanford staff. Or not staff, but lineup. Like Brady Reynolds, the sophomore there.
Yeah,
I think he's in for a pretty big year.
Yeah, I think he was going to be on my breakout sophomore list, but when I did the parameters to narrow it down, he had played too many games last year, so I had taken him out. But I like him as well.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, again, we could keep naming them. It's funny, man, talking about this league this year, that you can talk yourself into a top third of the league finish for just about every team.
Yeah.
I have. I have actively talked myself into it. Notre Dame, you are winning the ACC. I've talked myself into that. I get you. It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, number 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? Look, man, after they clowned me on their social media last year when I said there was no chance they were making the tournament with 2 weeks left in the season, they did. I'm done counting out Pittsburgh. I can't do it anymore.
They had to win a series against Florida State to do that.
Yeah. I think they had Florida State and Wake left on their schedule. And so I was just kind of like,
it was Florida State and then at Mark Light for Miami.
Oh yeah,
Miami, yes, and Miami on the road, right. Yep. So,
because I thought they were done too because Miami had played so well at home.
All right, then you should have said it very loudly.
Yeah,
so they put you on the clown
video. Nope, because I was all about Pitt.
Monty's also a very, very big anti-Mark Light Magic guy.
Yeah, I am anti.
I did not. I was not aware of that. Okay, got it.
Oh, dude, I remember. What was it? Virginia went down there and they collapsed admittedly, and I remember Monty just going in background. It's like, why does this happen every time?
It's the magic. It's the magic, baby.
It's the magic. Yep. And then it happened to North Carolina. It happened to. I mean, Clemson dropped a game there.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Notre Dame and Miami last year at home were really tough places to go for teams. So it'll be a lot of fun. But I can't wait for the ACC. When I got a chance when you offered to let me fill in for Jared, I was like, heck yes, I'll talk to Daron again. I got some follow-ups.
I love it. I love it when the person I asked to come in is just prepared, ready to go. I love it. That's all I've got. Monty, do you have any other questions?
No, I'm good. I've asked. I'm about asked out all the questions I could ask Daron over the last 2 days.
Nice, Tyler. May I, if I could, just again to sort of plug Rintaro. It is to clarify. Each episode is going to appear in the D1Baseball podcast feed. So we've got the 3 shows now with the SEC and the ACC pods, but this is the D1 proper feed. Episodes are going to show up there twice a week, starting Monday, January 27th, episode 1. Then and there, it's 6 parts. Let me think of what else. You'll love the artwork. Our guy Kev Roche, who did the ACC Baseball, etc. art, does Sunday Night Baseball artwork. A great illustrator. He's done the artwork for Rintaro, so we've kind of intentionally withheld that to reveal on release day or near release day as well. So like it will really pop. You if you follow the right type of people and your algorithms are college baseball centric, you're not going to be able to miss it. It's gonna pop. It's gonna look great, and you'll know that that is Rintaro, the narrative podcast on the D1 Baseball Network.
Not to mention, listen to the rest of the ACC Baseball Etc. podcast. You and Danny do a great job.
Appreciate that. Appreciate when Danny shows up. I'm kidding. Gravy's been great, man, and like he'll have a more regular. We've come to an agreement. A lot of the off season, he's a super hockey dad. If you listen, you get our occasional talk of his son. The hockey prodigy. He has started to play goaltender, and I think that's where he's going to stick. So be on the lookout if you're a college hockey fan. A Peter Graves is on the way and is probably going to be the next big thing in the pipes. So he's been traveling a lot for that, and that takes up a lot of his time. But once the season starts, obviously his ESPN work gets going again, so there's more of a cadence, and he'll be with me weekly for breakdowns at the beginning of every week. We'll look back on the weekend. So yeah, ACC Baseball, etc. Appreciate the plug there.
Absolutely, man. Like I got to make sure we get you all filled out here. Not to mention, can we have Peter Graves be the goaltender for the Hurricanes?
So when we started the show, Gravy actually told me, and at the time his kid had not started really to play goaltender on a permanent basis with these travel teams. He told me, like, yeah, his favorite player is Fred Anderson, and I popped so hard. I loved it. So maybe one of these days, maybe no one would be happier for the worlds colliding element of that than me, Peter Graves, being an NHL goaltender for the Carolina Hurricanes. I would love that so hard here in 15, 20 years if it happens.
Monty's over here trying to ignore us because you're a Caps fan, right?
Yeah. Yep. Washington Capitals.
Well, hey, I mean, you still got like an 8-point lead in the division on us, so
yeah, and we've still got Ovechkin, so I'm happy.
Yeah, so you got stuff to be excited about. You got plenty to be excited about.
Yeah.
All right.
So.
But yeah, that'll be everything, Darren. Thank you again for joining us. I'm very, very excited to see what goes on with the Sasaki podcast, and I'm just ready for college baseball. Honestly,
same. I'm so ready. Let's get it here already, guys.
Please, I just want to get this started. I don't want the day job anymore. I really don't. For reference, it snowed the past couple weeks here. I think we had that ice storm a couple weeks ago, and Darren, you had snow, and in a reverse course on us this week. Like I got 1.5 inches of snow here, and everything just shut down for a couple days. So
yeah,
and I'm north of you, and I didn't get any snow.
Yeah, that's because of this historically significant southern blizzard, borderline blizzard, right? I think there were warnings down in Louisiana of that sort of stuff. So
it was like the southernmost blizzard warning ever issued.
Yeah.
It was Lake Charles, Louisiana. I'm like, why can't we have that? Well, actually, I don't know if I want that. No, actually, no. Now that I think about it, no, that's probably a bad
I'm okay
idea.
with look, I grew up in the mountains. I'm okay with the dusting that we got, a couple inches, something that's manageable on the roads. As long as there's the infrastructure in whatever town or municipality you live in. I'm okay with that. I don't know if I want it ruining weeks at a time of plans. I'm not down on that.
Yeah.
Now, I can only imagine 8 inches of snow would shut down the entire state for a month.
Yeah.
More than likely. So now that we're past the snow talk, let's just get college baseball here. Darren, thank you again so much for coming on, man. Monty, thank you as well, as always. So
cool.
We'll catch you guys later.
Guys. Yeah. Monty, thanks for following me around. Get lost.
Absolutely.
Though.
Okay.